Crossbows are awesome. You don't have guys, crossbows are not typically used for hunting. You cannot use them to hunt most animals in most states, in most counties, in most zones. Okay? So if you use a crossbow, you would only really typically be using it for target shooting. There is no scene for crossbow target shooting. At every competition, there is almost no one doing crossbow, or literally no one. No one uses crossbows. Maybe in their backyard, but no one actually uses them outside of their own use in their own backyard. But also, yeah, it's illegal to hunt with them in almost all contexts. So, yeah. PA crossbows are legal for deer hunting, archery season. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Certain areas you can, but a lot of them you can't. Or if they're legal and you can use them, it's very limited seasons. So people tend to not get them because they don't want to have only a 1 month window to hunt. So they get a standard bow. They get like a compound and they just hunt in the normal bow season. Is it because it's too strong? So I'll tell you some of the reasoning why they're disallowed. Yes, they're very strong. So are compounds. They're very strong though. They're often double the weight of a compound, if not more. But also the bolt, yeah, because the bolts are short, they don't go very straight for very long. A longer arrow with a longer feather or vein on it will do better. The shorter the arrow, the more unstable later in flight. So crossbow bolts, even though crossbows are very strong, they don't actually work well long range. So because of that, they're not very good. And then they're too unwieldy, heavy, and hard to set and everything quietly. So if you're using them to hunt and you also have to get up close, it just doesn't work well for hunting. It's really just not made for hunting. You know, something quieter is what you need. So people always do a compound or recurve bow when hunting, or a gun, because getting those set up, you know, knocking an arrow into string, going, it just makes a tiny little click and that's it. Drawing either of those bows for hunting, very quiet, you know. Whereas doing all the setup of a crossbow is a lot louder, and you could set it up and leave a bolt in it and just hold it there, but you know, people tend to not do that and then leave it for hours while they're waiting for a deer to pass. So, and then also because the flight of them is so bad by the end, the drop off and how unruly the bolt acts at the end of flight, they typically don't let people hunt with them because at least with a gun or the other types of bows, you just have like vertical drop off of your bullet or your arrow. With a crossbow, you get like a lot of left and right deviation at the end of the path. So the chance of shooting the wrong thing or hitting a person who may be nearby, which you shouldn't even take a shot if someone's in front of you at all, but you know, is higher. So it's just not allowed in most cases. TLDR, they're not allowed in most cases. They are still allowed sometimes. Someone brought up that the disabled can use them, and that's true. That's true. You can do that if you want to hunt. In a lot of areas, they'll let you get a special license for it, but they're not practical. They're genuinely just not that good. Like, there are different things for every use case that are better. They're all around not bad, but you get a specific thing for a specific case, and the crossbow's never the best in any case, typically. So they look really cool, and I really like them, but you know, there's almost never a reason for you to use it over something else. I mean, there's a no-kill deer ranch for disabled people too. There's a lot available. Yeah. But a lot of folks who are disabled don't do bow hunting. They'll just use rifle. And you can get all sorts of stands. Let's say you're missing an arm. You can get like a stand to lay the rifle on. And then just use like your right arm or, you know, whatever to shoot, things like that. So there are a lot of ways that's more accessible. That is because animals suffer if the bolt doesn't hit the right spot. No, that any hunting, that's a possibility. So the idea is the most ethical hunting that they try to push everyone toward is using a rifle or some sort of gun, because your chance of killing the animal, not causing them to just get hurt and suffer, is way, way, way higher. Whereas if you use any type of bow, typically most people are not as good of shots as they think they are, and you know, they end up shooting in a spot that doesn't hit very well, doesn't land very well. They don't really hit an organ, they just hit like some random spot, and you know, and it's not so good. And that's why a lot of people will hunt typically with a compound bow, because they're very heavy in draw weight, and your arrows getting launched almost like not literally like a fucking bullet, but compared to a standard, you know, recurve, it goes a lot faster and hits a lot harder. So yeah, they'll typically go hunting with like a 50 plus, usually 60 plus pound bow in a compound, and it's the only way to hunt. Honestly, if you're doing bow and you're doing large game, you can absolutely use a standard recurve bow to go ground stalk and shoot and kill something, but the weights at which those bows have to be to get through certain animals is really fucking high, and very few people shoot enough to like actually make that make sense. No matter how strong you think you are, like, you know, really not common, not typical. If you ever know someone who's into like hunting and all that stuff, and they have shit laying around, or you yourself have shit laying around relating to it, a lot of arrows, these are crossbow bolts because they're about half length. I'm talking about these, not these. These. Some of them are made of metal, typically aluminum. Okay? They can bend, whatever. You can still shoot them when they're bad. When they're black, a good number of arrows are made of carbon. Okay? And that's something that is very common in hunting. Carbon splinters. When it's not good, it's old, it cracks, it gets bad, it splinters, it frays out, and you can get carbon splinters in you, and it's really bad because it's this very jagged kind of material. When it splinters, it gets into you, and you can't get it out. You have to like cut it out sometimes. So if you're ever handling like someone's old hunting equipment or anything, be wary of the old arrows. They can also shatter. Yeah, you shouldn't shoot them unless you're absolutely sure they are sound. Again, if it's aluminum, fucking whatever. But, yeah, like a porcupine quill, exactly. It's very, like, jagged. So, yeah, just be really careful. Those are the kinds of the arrows that where, if you, like, dry fire a bow, you know, and the bow, like, explodes and everything, sometimes when you, even though you have an arrow knocked on, if it's not knocked on all the way, the bow will dry fire and have an issue, and then sometimes the arrow explodes on you if it hits the wrong thing, and blah, blah, and I've seen people get really bad carbon splinters while hunting, and it's really fucking bad if you get a shard of it in your eye. Really hard to remove. Even metal is normally hard to remove. This is even worse. Okay? So just be aware, like, with old hunting equipment, anything that's, like, carbon like that, just check to make sure they're okay. I'll just make an HOA, and I'll set out an area and be like, oh, lay members can build here, and I'll be, like an annoying Karen about it. And then that'll be the RP for the server, is I keep being the most annoying HOA president.